Hey everybody, Jeff Antoniuk here from Jazzwire. Welcome to Guided Listening. All right, so by the way, I wish you could see the back of my t-shirt. I got my new Jazzwire t-shirts on for the Summer Summit, our workshop coming up this July. Front of it's pretty good. There's all kinds of hip original artwork on the back, but it's not a multi-camera shoot today. There you go. By the way, the summit is, we have 85 faculty, staff, and participants coming from around the world, literally around the world. Canada and Europe and New Zealand and Australia. It's going to be incredible. We have 2 drum spots left. We're sold out for all horns, piano, bass, guitar, everything but drums. So if you know, you yourself, or if you know a drummer that would like to join us in DC, July 24 through 27, let us know. We sold out about 10 days ago, the Canadian Saxophone Summit. It was amazing. So I hope I'm going to see you at one of these events one of these days soon. Okay, so Sugar. It was recorded in 1970, so it's a swing tune, you know, but it's on the CTI label, so it definitely sounds like 1970. If 1970 has a sound, you know what I'm talking about. So we listened to, you know, on this, I think it's Billy Kay on drums, it's Ron Carter on bass, Lonnie Liston-Smith, I believe, on electric piano, Freddy Hubbard on this, and of course Stanley Turrentine on saxophone. And I have the great privilege of most weeks playing with James King. James King is a great bass player from Houston, Texas. He lives here in the DC area. He and I have played hundreds and hundreds of gigs together. And James has played with like really everybody. It's one of my games I like to play with myself during the set break, is just name somebody famous and like, James, you ever played with Elvin Jones? Well, and he won't tell you, but like eventually he'll be like, yeah, I did a tour with Elvin or whatever. Did you ever play with Stanley Turrentine? Yeah, I was in his band for 3 years. Oh, man, getting to play with James King is great because he's played with all these greats. Why did they call him? Because he's James King and he plays the bass like that. It's wonderful, James King. So yeah, I get to hear some cool Stanley Turrentine stories. Okay, so let's jump into this thing and we'll sort of talk about it as it goes. But it was a very successful tune, I think. It found its way onto lots of jazz jukeboxes, got a ton of airplay. And the song is entirely, every note of the song is constructed from the minor pentatonic scale. And Stanley's solo is almost entirely played from minor pentatonic and the blues scale. Those 2 scales are almost the same. The blues scale is 1 extra note. But that was the palette. Did Stanley not know how to do anything else? No, of course he did. Did he not know how to play bebop? Of course he could play bebop. He knew the sound of this tune. So it's really interesting to listen and to notice that almost all that you're hearing is one sound. It's one scale. I could teach a 3-year-old to play that scale on the piano in 15 seconds. There's nothing hard about that scale. That would be like me pointing at a Picasso painting from the blue period and saying, check it out. This is entirely blue and black. Easy, right? Well, of course, when you have a limitation like only use blue and black, like any great artist all of a sudden is like scratching their head, like what do I do with that? Problem to solve. And just because I hand you the correct paints doesn't mean you're now an artist, let alone at Picasso's level, right? So when we hear that someone's just using these 5 or 6 notes, well, that's got to be facile. It's got to be easy. It's got to be, what's the point? No. The question becomes, wow, what's he doing to keep my interest through this? Assuming he's keeping your interest, right? Well, there's so much going on with style and articulation and tone and swagger and everything going on in the rhythm section. So it's kind of cool to listen to. So, you know, as we listen to this, kind of be aware that what you're listening to is a kind of narrow palette. He's limiting himself a lot. And that's what gives this song the sound of this song. Here we go, Stanley Turrentine, Sugar. So cool intro with a set rhythm, right? 1, 2, 3, and that rhythm kind of 1, 2, 3, and listen to the bass. 1, 2, 3, and 2. So the intro set it up pretty nicely. Oh yeah, I forgot. George Benson. George Benson on the guitar. That's cool. We're hearing trumpet, saxophone, and guitar. Stanley Turrentine's way up in the mix. We don't really hear Freddy. He's definitely there, but it's kind of hard to hear. Every note you're hearing is from the minor pentatonic scale. 5 notes. This whole melody is 5 notes. Crazy. Woo! The first thing I'm struck by is how dynamic Stanley Turrentine's, how he'll hit notes really hard and then mumble notes, all inside one line. Just listen. Just that. Ba-ba-doo, ba-ba-doo. Hitting a high note, soft and softer. And that's a Stanley thing. Boo-da-doo-da-doo-da-doo-da. Making the offbeats short. Right? It's not swinging exactly, yet it's so swinging. It's a quirky thing that he does. Did you hear that? How wide a dynamic range he's speaking with. He's really mumbling and he's really shouting to us. Lots of bends up to a note and then bends off a note. That's sort of a Stanley thing that the R&B players would do, is they'd be holding a note and go off the end of the note. Not a bebop thing. That is totally not a bebop thing. Bebop guys would end it tight and hard and precise, and he's kind of doing this gesture off the notes. There. Right? Cool bends. And again, I'm going to remind you that almost every single note he's playing is from the blues scale. And now, there are plenty of chords going by. There are a lot of chords outside that key. And he's picking the notes that work over each of these different chords. In the 7th and 8th measure of the form, that's the one place he leaves the blues scale pretty much every chorus. He hits the major third of that dominant chord. We're getting in the weeds, but he changes the tonality in that one place. I'll show it to you this time. And here's the place usually. There you go. And kind of the sun came out, and now it's back. Now he's back to the blues. Kind of cool to notice that. He's treating the form exactly the same each time, would be a way to put it. He's found a cool path, and he's taking that path every time. Some players would want a different path, 5 different paths on 5 different choruses. Stanley's like, nope, I like this one, this is what I'm doing. Freddy Hubbard. So he comes in, kind of cool, laid back. But we know Freddy, that's not gonna last. Blues. Kind of interesting, Stanley was higher in the mix on the melody, but also in his solo. They've dialed Freddy down here. So he's going for it. Now it's Stanley's album. Stanley was probably in the mixing booth like, yeah, more of me, less of Freddy. I wouldn't doubt it. So Freddy's playing kind of more bebop, post-bop language. He's leaving the blues scale, even though he's got a lot of the blues sound in what he's doing. Blues, just that right there, blues with all blues. And triplet bass. Da ba do da 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 da, triple it, triple it, triple it, triple it. So that's one thing I noticed as I was listening to this is especially, I guess it would be the first two solos, Stanley and now Freddy, a lot of triplet. All that triplets, triplet based. We wouldn't hear Dizzy and Charlie Parker and Monk playing that way, 2 decades before this. It was more eighth note based. Now this tempo, the vibe, the groove, the gospel kind of thing going on brings the triplets into play here. Triplets. Different rhythmic language is the way to put it. Now that was 16th note double time. That's more like bebop. So Freddy was one of those guys that came from bebop, was the master of sort of post-bop, and then he was there for this kind of fusion stuff that was going on late 60s into the 70s. He made 1 million of those albums. So he was always Freddy through it, but he knew how to temper things depending which album he was on. Good musician. So Freddy's solo has to have been 3/4 blues again. Just he allowed more in than Stanley did. The great George Benson. So more double time. And now eighth note. So it's interesting that George's solo is a little bit more rhythmically traditional. Eighth notes or 16ths, if that's rhythmically traditional. For jazz it is. So he's already played more double time than either Stanley or Freddy did. And he's kind of playing with the changes more. He's doing more harmonically extended ideas than Stanley, certainly. And to me, that's cool. Like these three soloists have really different, they're playing different instruments, of course, but different language. They're speaking about different things in a different way, which is what I want to hear on an album. I don't want to hear 3 guys playing the same material back to back. So, a background. I don't like the mix. The saxophone is too loud. I can barely hear the trumpet to know it's a background. So I want to hear more trumpet, less saxophone, so it sounds more like a true background. So that was just kind of a quirky thing. When it, I hadn't listened to this album in 20 years, and when Stanley came in playing that line, I'm like, what the hell is going on? It's a guitar solo. Did he interrupt? Oh no, guitar's still soloing. Well, what's going on? Well, Stanley's, it was confusing. Man, George Benson, what a great guitarist. Many of us know him from his commercial success and him singing and all that, but he was a hell of a guitar player. We can say the same thing about Nat King Cole. We know Nat King Cole from singing Christmas songs and, all the great stuff he did. He was one of the all-time great jazz piano players. You may not know that. Harry Connick, more modern, great crooner kind of guy. He was an outrageous piano player. So if you sing, it's easier to sell some albums. You get some success singing, all of a sudden you're doing that a lot. So I'm not angry at those guys, but it would have been nice to hear more as an instrumentalist for them to develop and record more of that side of themselves. I've solved that by being a terrible singer and not a commercial success. So I've got the best of both worlds. How about this ending? What does this ending tell you? This fade out here, board fade, before the end of the tune. Yeah, what does that tell you? Oh, I know what that tells me. That tells me they totally screwed up the ending. It was a hot mess. They couldn't use it. Except for the track was 10 minutes long, and it was pretty good. They all liked their solos. The other possibility is, the session's over in 7 minutes. I guess we're done. So That's I will bet my house that the ending got jacked up or something happened to the tape, literally physical tape that it got mangled in the machine. Oh my God, what are we going to do? And so they did a board fade. There's no way they meant to do it. It's a weird place in the tune. The song wasn't over. They should have gone back to the intro. There's no way they meant to do that, except for who knows, who cares, right? I mean, it works. But I'm going to guarantee, the Jeff Antoniuk's guarantee of Canadian approval there, that's what went on. By the way, that's an official thing in Canada. Ask any Canadian. I'd love for you to ask a bunch of Canadians about that. That would be very funny. Okay, so yeah, they mechanically rescued the ending. Whatever went wrong, they fixed it up. So there you go. That's Sugar. So that's one of the songs we're going to be playing at the Summer Summit. One of 14 songs. So I like to do guided listenings for our attendees coming from around the world, all adults and, average age 50, 60 into the 70s. Those are the folks we work with inside Jazzwire. So this is one of 14 songs. We're doing some Freddy Hubbard tunes. We're doing a Marion McPartland tune. We're doing Bud Powell. Oh, geez, I'm blanking. Joe Beam. A great cross section of jazz, the music that we know and we love. So that's going to be coming up soon. As I said, we've got maybe it's one drum spot left, and then we'll be ready to go. So thank you for tuning in to the guided listening sessions, the Digging Deeper Jazz sessions. I'm really happy so many of you are getting a lot out of this. I get emails and comments every week, letting me know to keep doing these because people are enjoying them. So thank you. Please leave some comments yourself. And we'll see you back here next week. Have a great one.